Peace and Black Power, family. When we think of intelligence, often we're talking about who can answer all the questions. I was a classroom teacher for many years, and a lot of the teachers even were under the false notion that the smartest students in the class were the ones that said, I got the answer. But oftentimes what we find is that a very good gauge of one's intelligence is the questions that they ask. Because it's those questions that lead us, that interrogation leads us to answers, or at least takes us on the journey that will lead us to the answers we seek. So today I have 21 questions, and I'm going to be raising those questions with you, family. And I hope that these are questions that you'll think about, maybe even questions that you'll raise in your household, in your community organization. And certainly some of these are questions we should be raising with our so-called leaders and organizers and activists. Certainly questions all revolutionaries should be asking. So let's go. 21 questions. Number one, who really runs this country? I'm talking about in terms of foreign and domestic policy, in terms of the budgetary decisions, in terms of the military expenditures. Who controls the market forces in this country? Number two, why hasn't this president, who is a documented racist, sexist, Islamophobe, idiot, and traitor to his own nation, been removed from office yet? I know they got impeachment proceedings, but they should have a special rule. This dude is probably going to be found out, or they already know he is actually a bona fide traitor to his own nation because of his dealings with foreign powers around elections and the influence, right? Okay. Number three, and if you feel in these questions, give me some feedback on that thread, family. Give me a little feedback. Let me know what you feeling in it, that this resonates with you. Number three, why are this nation's prisons disproportionately filled with black and brown people? And why is it that most of these individuals have never even had a trial? Most of their own plea bargains. That's a good question to ask. Number four, in relationship to the last question, why hasn't the 13th Amendment been amended to remove imprisonment as a form of modern day slavery? And under that pretense, so many millions of our good brothers and sisters, our relatives, our comrades are in prison behind this amendment, family. Do know that. If you don't believe, watch the documentary 13. Number five, why don't corporate executives who are responsible for poisoning the land, the sea, and the air, and prematurely killing American citizens through food and all these other things, why aren't they forced to serve long prison terms or sentenced to death under the laws of this country? That's a good question to raise. Oh, wait a minute, we got more. Number six, why aren't this nation's wealthiest citizens, and not just the citizens, but the corporations, which are considered fake or imaginary, fictitious people, by the way, corporations are, why aren't they forced to pay a disproportionate percentage of the taxes of this country? I saw a documentary done by Michael Moore, and he was critiquing capitalism, and he was saying, and I might be, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure he said that in the up to 1950 or 60, that the corporations of the United States paid 80% of what they made. They paid in taxes. Think about that. And now they probably pay almost nothing because of loopholes created by legislation. All right. Number seven, why haven't black people received reparations? And that could be in any form: land, vouchers for college, financial payments, whatever, as restitution for the unethical enslavement, human trafficking, brutality, theft of our ideas and intellectual property of our, ancestors. Number 8, why are African artifacts stolen by European colonizers and imperialists still on display in certain European museums? Why haven't these precious paintings, sculptures, and texts been returned to African authorities and institutions? Good questions, aren't they? And these questions should lead some of you to do some research. Say, yeah, that is a good, yeah, why not? And do something about it. It's not just to raise these questions to raise them, family. All right. Number 9, why are those responsible for enforcing the law not held accountable to those very laws themselves? And why aren't there any organizations internally or externally outside of that system forcing them to be held accountable? Do you think that white people, if 10, 20 white people were killed every week by some black cops, black sheriffs, black military people, would take that, would nothing, you think they would do nothing about it? You think they would just be marching and protesting? Don't think so. Why do we do that? Why is the money of this country, the currency, completely worthless, not worth the paper it's printed on? That's the first thing. Why is it completely worthless? And why hasn't the Federal Reserve been dismantled? A privately held organization. Federal Reserve is a misnomer. It's not owned by the federal government. It's a privately owned organization that loans the government money, prints the bills, puts the money in the banks, sets the interest rates. It's ridiculous. Why is it not dismantled? Why aren't the citizens in the streets saying no more Federal Reserve? Good question, right? Why do some black people adopt alien ideologies that promote division amongst themselves? So you got people saying we don't recognize Africa. We're not part of no African diaspora. That's them over there, Caribbeans, y'all over there, huh? South Brazil, all y'all people, Africa, y'all over there. We're the American descendants of slaves. Why do we define ourselves by our enslavement? Why don't we see the beauty in us unifying and having a solid Pan-African consciousness? Interesting question, right? Let's keep going, family. This is getting fun. Why doesn't the Bill of Rights contain an amendment or several amendments that recognizes food, clothing, employment, shelter, and health care as being basic citizenship rights that every citizen in the country is entitled to? Good question, right? Because a lot of the rights that they have codified in the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the United States Constitution, almost fall flat. They have no teeth. The people don't have no leisure time, no money, bad health, right? So you need an economic Bill of Rights in addition to the political Bill of Rights we have now. 13. Why do we fail to understand that an effective nation requires several moving parts? And why don't we encourage our people to see themselves as a nation instead of just a bunch of different black folk, loosely assembled people in this big landmass they call the United States? Why don't we say we have things in common, history, our problems, our oppressors, our culture? We are a nation. We just got to name it and claim it, family. Why aren't we creating and celebrating our own important people, rituals, customs, and holidays? Why is not May 19th a national holiday in the black nation to recognize Brother Malcolm? That's all I'm asking. Why is there not a Harriet Tubman Day in this country and all over the world? Do we have to wait for white folk, white teachers and administrators and boards of education and the federal government to say this is a holiday, you can take the day off? Is that what it is? Here in New York, I see Jewish holidays. There's Muslim holidays, families, all type, because people are organizing and demanding. These days are important to our people. You don't have to believe, but they're important to us. And since we pay taxes, we demand what? That our people be recognized. And so you got Muslim holidays, Jewish, all these holidays. Where's your holiday, black man and black woman? Good question. 16. Why do we insist on continuing to protest, light candles, let balloons go in the air, create memorials, tear down memorials as responses to state-sanctioned police murder of our people? When we see that whereas some of these tactics may be helpful, I'm not knocking all of them, they're not working, family. They're not working. You tearing down a 200-year-old statue of some racist does not tear down racism. You lighting candles and marching with 300 black folk wearing all black with the picture of the black family member that's been killed by police and letting birds go in the air and balloons ain't stopping it, and it ain't bringing your loved ones back. When are we going to come to grips with the reality that we are dealing with as a people and get the courage to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done? 17, why do we refuse to create and enforce a policy that, like Biggie Smalls said, there's going to be consequences when white families, businesses, and lives, and communities, and institutions, whenever a black person is assaulted or killed in this country? Biggie Smalls said it this way: it's going to be a lot of slow singing and flower bringing if my burger alarm starts ringing. Number 18, when will we, like Asians and Jews and Indians and everybody else, use nationalism, education, cooperative economics, self-determination, and group solidarity to exert power over our lives instead of depending on a corrupt political party system to do so? Good question, right? How come you pulling levers every 4 years or 2 years and nothing's changing? And yet people tell you if you don't do that, you're disrespecting your ancestors. I see black people at the core weren't fighting to vote. They weren't fighting to go to school. They were fighting to be free. 19. Why do so many of us pray to or worship images of the Most High, angels, or messiahs that look identical to those who subjugated us? And when will we recognize that spirituality, culture, economics, and politics work together? 20. Why are we so prone to becoming cult members, being abused and exploited by fraudulent, compromised, conflicted leadership and get-rich schemes? And why are we afraid to hold those who serve us accountable and responsible for those actions? And the last question: if it's true that we will ultimately win our liberation through accurate analysis, practical application of that analysis, and outthinking and organizing and building our enemies, why do we place such a low level of importance on acquiring and teaching Black liberation consciousness, Pan-Africanism, and nation-building skills? I believe if we start asking these type of questions, those hard questions, uncomfortable questions, questions that annoy people in power persecuting us, then we will be a step closer to our freedom and our true liberation.